low. And I was like, okay, what's the cost behind this? She's like, we just split it 50-50 after we've covered all the costs. And I was just like, who are you? Personally,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. Like, I like
4 lakh रुपए. And they said Shehzad joke कर रहा है, ये 2 साल पुराना joke है. And then जब भी replied 7 साल से तो मैं सुन रहा हूँ उसको.
Therapy, but like anxiety, there's so many things, man. Like
रिक्शे वाले are like sugar is
therapy. Like,
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pakistan Experience. और अवाम की भरपूर फरमाइश पर हम वापस लाए हैं स्टूडियो में. शायद इस स्टूडियो में पहली दफ़ा कोई रिटर्न किया है इन स्टूडियो. म्यूजिशियन, प्रोड्यूसर, रिकॉर्ड लेबल ओनर, बिग शिट, शेफ, नॉट नेबर एनी मोर, मिस्टर डैनियल आर्थर पंजवानी. कैसे हैं आप?
ठीक ठाक. How are you?
गुड 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 गुड. मैंने यूट्यूब पे लिखा कि आप आ रहे हैं, उस पर टॉप कमेंट था, हाय कराची में भी सिंधी क्रिश्चियन है.
Did someone actually write that?
हाय, तो ये क्या स्टोरी भाई? ये सिंधी क्रिश्चियन क्या?
कभी आप मीरपुर खास चले जाएंगे, you'll find lots of Sindhi Christians. I think it probably dates back from like pre-partition के ज़माने से. So there's lots of like, I think even like Sindhi Hindus as well, like a whole part of like Maharashtra is like Sindhi speaking.
हमने सिर्फ सिंधी है जहाँ माइनॉरिटीज को छोड़ दिया पाकिस्तान में, बाकी जगह से तो हमने भगा दिया. आई थिंक सिंध स्टिल compared to the rest of the provinces at least still has some acceptance.
हाँ, वो तो I'm sure. But like even like Saraiki speaking as well and all of that. I mean, there's lots of even Balochi Christians as well in Pakistan, for that matter. I don't know if it's like a pre-partition thing mainly with that side, but like obviously the missionaries did their job as well many years ago. But yeah, I mean like this is such a multicultural place in that sense, and like religion and culture seem to mix up and people get kind of, I guess, confused or are misinformed about the fact that there are Sindhi Christians and there are Balochi Christians. Punjabi Christians ka to there's a huge population in Pakistan.
So Christmas भी आ रही है. I thought this would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
What is the Christian experience of Christmas in Karachi?
It's really interesting. We were discussing this the other day with my in-laws. So basically like a lot of like I think I spoke to you about this also, like a lot of like rich families and stuff.
मैंने भेजा ना तस्वीर लेकर.
वो like springs के अंदर turkey भेज रहे हैं वो. And well, like lots of like rich families, and it's not necessarily like Christian families or anything like that, but there are like lots of like families that have Christmas lunch or like Christmas dinner, and then they have like a huge spread with like a 7-course meal, and there's like, you know, turkey and cranberry and all sorts of things. And then there's like the actual community. Look, like I remember Christmas dinner would be my dad making brain masala and karai. Or pie, like he'd start cooking pies 2 days before that.
इतनी देसी कर दिया, ऐसा लगता है चिमनी के अंदर से सर सैयद अहमद खान आएंगे सेंटा क्लॉज की जगह. मतलब सेंटा तो है ना. Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. I mean, like, हाँ, इधर तो है. But I mean, like
Santa Claus exists for Pakistani Christians.
Of course, like actually,
Sayyid Mamu है दाढ़ी वाले.
You know, the crazy thing is, like, I used to remember this, like, back when I was a kid, like even Tarkur pe reh ke when I used to stay there, even when I was a kid, and like मैं रोने लग जाता था because I've never liked anything dressed up like as something. It was weird.
Clowns से नफरत है आपको.
I hate clowns.
Yeah.
So I remember, like, you know, when I was like 6-7 years old, they'd come and ring the bell at our apartment, and there'd be like Christmas carolers and a Santa Claus. And this is like, there was a much bigger Christian community back then, so they knew where everyone lived, and they used to do this traveling sort of thing. they'd come to the door, they'd ring the bell, you'd open the bell, they start singing Christmas carols and like doing little dance sort of thing.
Tis the season to be jolly, la 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 la, and like that chupkar.
So you know how like at the end of Ramazan ढोल वाले आते हैं कि पैसे दे दो हमने सहरी के लिए उठाया है आपको.
मुझे इतना अच्छा लगता है यार ये कल्चर.
So this is a similar thing with like
I hate it.
So it's a similar thing with like Christmas carols. और अभी तक that tradition still lives on in like Christian buildings and stuff जो community के होती हैं. Like I'm sure it still happens in Anthonian Blessings in Kent and like the One Eye building, Mariam Apartments and all these places.
तो carols वही होते हैं या अपने local हैं?
यार दोनों हैं.
Local सुनाओ ना यार.
I don't know the local ones. I don't know the local ones at all.
ठंड आ गई है कराची में la 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 la.
But there's also like lots of like local sangeet and stuff which are like religious songs for Christians as well.
कोई तो आता होगा. हो नहीं सकता. Impossible है. तुम choir में भी थे church के.
I was in a very very burger church.
कोई तो तुम्हें याद होगा ना.
नहीं.
थोड़ा
I remember my mom had a collar tune which was a sangeet.
थोड़ा जी वो क्रिसमस नू दे दे वो पंजाबी टच नच सेंटा नच इस तरह होता है वो locally remix हो जाए.
You know, like I think like my mom's one was like there's this one called खुदा से मांग. So it's like खुदा से मांग मिलेगा उसके वादे से कुछ इस तरह. Something was like something really like interesting. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there's this whole
same लोग ही रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं. They're like यार इसमें मुसलमान कर देना, इसमें क्रिश्चियन करना, गाना वही रखा है.
स्टूडियोज का यही तो काम है.
वही गाने आगे कर दो.
स्टूडियोज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का भी यही काम है. जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर आपके म्यूजिक को भी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है डिजिटली, वो मतलब कि रिलीजियस लाइक ट्यून्स आई वुड से और लाइक रिलीजियस लाइक नोहे वगैरह भी इस पे होते हैं. सो आई मीन लाइक it's also a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know?
I think हम लोगों ने बड़े strategically 25 दिसंबर को छुट्टी दे दी है बनाकर. So कुछ होती हैं like activities जिस तरह होली भी is a big thing in Karachi, but you need to know कि कहाँ हो रही है, कौन कर रहे हैं.
Yeah.
और वो लोग करते हैं दिवाली होली फुल प्रॉपर कम्युनिटीज मिलाकर. इस तरह कोई पब्लिक क्रिसमस मैन तो नहीं देखी कराची में.
पब्लिक वाले भी होते हैं. Like I mean, there's obviously like the things that are within the community and only for the community, and those invites are only sent within the community and people of like their friends and everything. But there are also the more bougie things that happen. Like I believe Alliance just recently had like a Christmas bazaar.
उसमें सारे पाकिस्तानी अपने ही होते हैं.
Exactly. इस टाइप की चीजें होती रहती हैं. But like for example, like on Christmas Eve, certain Christian community ke buildings, they have like a Christmas bonfire where they play music and it's like a whole like big dance party sort of thing. There are Christmas melas leading up into the days into Christmas and stuff like that. So there are quite a few things that happen. But to be very honest, like compared to what it was like in the 90s when I was growing up and compared to what it is now, so it's completely different. Like it's like an entire part of my childhood has been erased in that way. It doesn't exist anymore, there were a lot more things that were happening back then. And to be very honest, like, I mean, lots of people did start migrating, but like, I think post 9/11 also, it just really, really got bad because like a lot of missionaries that were also here working in the churches, there was a huge sort of expat community. वो भी सारे चले गए. A lot of my friends that I grew up with as well, who were Europeans and Americans as well, जो हमारे church पे आते थे, वो सारे they're just no longer here. And these were people that used to live in Malir, for example.
Probably also social media has made it worse. ना मतलब अगर आप तारिक रोड पे देख रहे भी हैं सेंटा 90s में, बुलाएं ठीक है.
हाँ.
आप ऑफेंड भी हो गए तो भी ठीक है. अब यू लाइक टेक अ पिक्चर एंड बी लाइक, इज दिस इस्लामिक रिपब्लिक ऑफ पाकिस्तान? And you'll post on Twitter and become like a national issue. It'll put people's lives at risk. तो अब शायद लोग public displays से उस वजह से भी कतराते हैं.
I mean, हर साल अभी तक there's a whole rally that happens. I don't know if you've ever noticed it. There's a whole big Santa rally that actually happens.
Santa कौन भी होता है कराची में?
So there's like actually buses and trucks full of people dressed up as Santa that just roam the streets of Karachi in the days leading up to Christmas and on Christmas Day itself.
Sounds like something Bilal would do a video on. Mr. Paki नहीं है.
Possibly.
मैं wait कर रहा हूँ.
Possibly, I think you take note, Bilal, do it. But like, you'll like I've in the past 5 years I spotted them on Share festivals, sometimes near Gora Kabristan. I think last year I saw them on Seaview.
By rally you mean like tens of, like hundreds?
Huge rally, like जैसे हमारे political rallies नहीं निकलते.
और Santa है सारे.
Yeah, Santas, and they're like playing music and they're like dancing and stuff like that. It's really nice. So I think like, I mean, obviously in between, all of these things kind of got eliminated and it stopped happening and only happened in small pockets. But I think like, post the era of the kind of religious extremism has also, in a way, like the violent extremism has kind of lessened as compared to how it was maybe about 5-10 years ago. So I think people are also kind of finding that confidence to come back out and you know, like celebrate their heritage, their culture, their religion, and you know, do that thing.
कभी नहीं बुलाया तुमने मुझे किसी choir पे ही बुला लो यार. पता है silent night.
I mean, there are things that happen like Christmas Eve. I haven't gone in years.
I mean, I'm sure like. यार होनी चाहिए. I think these things should really be promoted. I mean, it would be so nice अगर place like Frey Hall, you know, you have like,
it would be really nice.
It would be so nice, right? अगर silent night हो रहा है,
but just the thought of putting something like that together, you're like, अच्छा मैं NOC करवाऊँ फिर उससे like, you know, like
I don't
these
think
other things, and yeah, you never know. Like, I mean, the thing is like,
आप तो डैन आपका भाई पॉडकास्ट करता है, सब आते जाते रहते हैं, एक फोन करूँगा.
I think
जाना चाहिए.
I think like even as someone that grew up as a Christian and everything like that, like मुझे अभी तक वो, I think twice before I say anything कि कोई offend ना हो जाए किसी भी चीज से by the slightest thing, like, you know. So I think if that happens for me, imagine what's happening to the community on a larger scale, right? Like, even the slightest like thing you might say wrong could be taken in completely different context. Anything that you do in public can be taken in completely different context, and then, you know, it's just a constant stress.
And on the flip side, everybody calls you Daniel and doesn't feel like
Daniel Arthur Panjwaneey.
क्या नाम? Daniel Akhtar, Daniel Arthur, Daniel.
I still have a CAS का certificate from like first grade which says Daniel Akhtar Panjwaneey.
यार स्कूल वाले को तो पता होना चाहिए.
उनको भी नहीं था. Like, so yeah, I mean, it really comes down to what the mindset really is. I mean, it's a volatile place, so you never know what someone else is going to think, right?
Yeah, these things should be, even though last time जब आप आए थे पॉडकास्ट पे, लोगों को बड़ा पसंद आया कि क्रिश्चियन कम्युनिटी का म्यूजिक में जो कंट्रीब्यूशन रहा है, a lot of people don't know about that.
हाँ, obviously, I mean, like, if you go back to the 60s and stuff, there's so many things, right? Like, why music was, there was a good musical ecosystem back then. There were regular shows, you know, like I said last time also, hotels पे like, they used to have like jazz shows, cabaret shows होते थे, you know, there were like all these sorts of things. So yeah, this is a big contribution to the music scene. Brian
ने सुना फिर podcast?
I think he did.
Yeah, he messaged you, he messaged me,
I think
he messaged somebody.
He messaged his daughter who knows.
Yeah, Rachel को message किया था उन्होंने. हाँ, sweet of him यार. In fact, I have to get him on the podcast.
That would be actually a very good podcast. Because like even he set up a studio here back in the day as well. So he also recorded a few people and also was a part of the church I went to. So, you know, if there's anyone that you need to speak to about what it was like in the Christian community here as well, I'm sure he can give you some insight too.
अगर म्यूजिक की तरफ आ जाए जो आपका मेन मशगला है उसमें do you feel now it's easier कि कोई भी अपना म्यूजिक रिकॉर्ड करके अपलोड कर दे as opposed to अब वो गेट कीपर्स नहीं हैं जो पहले थे?
गेट कीपर्स तो अभी तक हैं. I mean
like if somebody like you who has a record label, isn't that so much better now than having like EMI,
sure.
Sadaf?
Of course. By that standard, like yes, the independent scene has nothing holding them back, right? Technology has made it a lot more accessible to be able to record your own music and put it out. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, like it has become a lot better in that sense. You know, there's online distribution. You can just sign up for something and distribute your music as well. So yeah, it is easier. But I wouldn't say the gatekeeping is over, because there's still like a lot of corporate backing behind lots of initiatives and stuff like that, which will keep promoting the same cycle of artists and not really take risks, I'd say. I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe sometimes people become undeniable, right? You might like them, you might not like them. अब young stunners हैं, Hassan Rahim हैं, सारे जो corporates हैं, they're backing them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And both of them खुद बनाया, खुद upload किया, खुद डाला, and the internet got back. फारिस शफी है, controversial, ठीक है, lyrics भी ऐसे हैं कि यार brand नहीं आएगा, ये ऐसी चीज़ें मत करो. चैनल्स के ज़माने में फारिस शफी के songs कभी नहीं चलते.
हाँ.
हजार उसमें मसले मसाइल होते हैं, ठीक है ना. Like Faris Shafi would have been a nobody. He did the music he wanted to do. He did it like he wanted to. And सालों साल कोई 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 views थे. But when it clicked, all his videos went to 1 million. And now corporates have no option but to get Faris Shafi.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, by that standard, obviously, like the digital age has leveled the playing field that way. And like, you can have your music out there and anyone can view it. I think the context that I'm talking a bit is it comes from a slightly biased place, because where I stand, at least in the music industry, is that I'm already a niche within a niche kind of thing, right? So like there's this whole subculture of music is what I mean, which might not get the credit or recognition it deserves on a larger scale, and it won't. Because this is more of a global context. But just the fact that there is a bunch of people that do make a whole bunch of interesting content and a whole bunch of interesting music in Pakistan, and it just sits around on hard drives or on some places online and no one knows what to do with it or how to access it, is where I mean, and corporates will not take a risk like, possibly getting like a techno artist or like someone who makes extremely experimental music onto like maybe a platform like Cook Studio or Velo or things like that.
So एक तरफ I get what you're saying, because पाकिस्तान में arts इतने ज़्यादा marginalize कर दिए हैं कि without corporate sponsorship आपका काम करना मुश्किल हो जाता है. But I mean Khalid Malik was also here and he had the same complaints about radio, and I was like आप करें तो, he said वो corporates नहीं आते. I said corporates आप करें तो फिर, but so at some point if somebody says कि मैंने सुशी बनानी है और उसने सुशी रेस्टोरेंट खोला हुआ है और फिर वो बोलता है यार पाकिस्तान में सब टिक्के खा रहे हैं, नहीं आप या तो बना लें आप टिक्के नहीं, आप जाकर बोलें कि यार सब टिक्के खाएं, सब सुशी खाएं, और फिर वो आके बोले यार ये कराची ईट वाले हैं और ये फेस्टिवल्स हैं, ये कोकी मुझे नहीं लेते, ये टिक्के वाले को ले लेते हैं, मैकडॉनल्ड्स KFC को ले लेते हैं. तो भाई आप बना लें. So if you want to be true to the art that you want to make, shouldn't that be enough? And thankfully it's paying the bills also, right?
I mean, yes and no, in the sense that like what would pay the bills was if I was getting maybe like 2 or 3 gigs a month. But like artists such as myself probably get 1 gig every 2-3 months. And that's just like a fraction of the bills. But like my bread and butter is essentially my freelance practice, which is like, doing audio production work, post-production work, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it'll pay the bills if there were regular shows, if there were venues here that were promoting these things, right? If we look at how things were maybe in the early 2000s when matters were worse in terms of like how the country was, we still had a lot more venues. We still had a lot more shows happening. Inflation hadn't like really destroyed us as much as it has right now also. So it was probably cheaper to put on shows back then than what it is now.
Sure, but that was a lot more popular music. Rock wasn't itna niche. It was a niche. But like Noori, RO, EP, these are household names.
Oh, so obviously. But
तो
like,
वो rock culture बना हुआ था उस time. You weren't doing electronic gigs back then.
No, not then. But like, I'm just saying that like the equivalent of what electronic music is today in Pakistan, the equivalent of that was what heavy metal was back then. Like, the stuff we were doing with Messiah or the bands like Seth that existed in Lahore, or even for that fact, like what Babar Sheikh was doing, with Northern Alliance and all of these things. Regardless of that, there were regular shows happening. And because of those regular shows happening, maybe not everyone, but like, for example, Dusk went on to, I believe, go to the Czech Republic, record an album. They even toured there. They did these things. Just having that ecosystem of having like regular shows and all these things make a difference. It builds credibility for your own portfolio. Okay, I'm still doing something in my country. So to be able to like reach out to another global market at a time like that, when there was barely any like social media or anything like that, is a huge thing.
I mean, I don't think किसी का तब भी घर चल रहा था heavy metal करके.
वो तो बिल्कुल नहीं चल रहा होगा, लेकिन फिर भी like those opportunities were still coming up, right? Like I believe music in Pakistan is not something that you will start earning from within the first 5 to 10 years.
In the 2000s, the money that you were making playing heavy metal was probably a lot less than the money you make now playing.
Absolutely.
So come on, yaar.
Yeah,
even like
absolutely.
ticket price तुम देख लो क्या होती हैं, sold out होती हैं, अच्छी खासे होते हैं.
But it has a lot to do with inflation though. Like Shehzad, if I was earning 10K back then from those shows, it's equivalent to earning like about 70K right now. There is no easily, man.
नहीं यार, 2000 में you're saying 10K in 2000s is equal to 70K in 2022.
Around about.
ज़्यादा हो गया, थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया.
Like कितना हो गया? Think about it.
40K तक दे, 30-40 तक दे देता हूँ मैं तुम्हें.
यार हम 10,000 में एक पूरा शो करवा देते थे. सही है. 10,000 में मैंने एक वीडियो भी बनवाई है.
वो तो अपने दोस्तों से मुफ्त में बनवा दे. PSCC, अच्छा PSCC का रेंट क्या था तब?
उस टाइम पे भी 10,000 ही था dude.
PSCC का रेंट 10,000.
Actually 8,000 रुपए था. 8 से 10,000 रुपए का PSCC का रेंट होता था. So yeah, there was like 6,000 rupees का sound का रेंट होता था. And the guy would be like, I throw in the lights for free. So all in all, your total cost would not exceed 18 to maybe 20,000 maximum doing a show.
या नहीं, अब तो वो लाख रुपए लग ही जाएगा.
Exactly. ना अब तो I mean उस टाइम पे ऐसा भी था कि like even the NOC thing was a gray area. You know, if you're doing it at PSCC, you're like, okay, this is a place for the culture and the arts. So there was no NOC required as such, unless it was like a highly commercial gig that had to be registered with excise and all of these things, right? अब तो like पैसे खाने वाले लोग बहुत आ जाते हैं बीच में. Like, you know, if you do a show, if you market it publicly to a point where the excise people see it, they start calling you. They're like, आपने register नहीं किया है ये वो.
पहले भी यही था. I think वो निकल जाते थे कि अच्छा दोस्तों friends and family आ रही हैं टाइप में. But if you're putting up posters like I was for theatre plays, it was the same thing. आ जाते थे, छापा मार देते थे on the day otherwise.
Yeah.
So that was always the case.
Yeah, I mean, I still think like 10,000 back then was a lot of money.
You were young. You're like, so much money I'm making. And from music.
Taxis were what? 5 rupees a kilometer.
Danny, तुम ना वो अंकलों वाली बातें कर रहे हो. हमारे ज़माने में
No, I'm just giving you a comparison,
हमारे ज़माने में
right?
दादी तुम्हारी 10 रुपए देती थी. मैं महीने का राशन ले आता था. 5 रुपए की कोई टैक्सी नहीं थी यार.
यार 5 रुपए का किलोमीटर होता था.
Okay. Thank you.
Per kilometer. 5 रुपए की टैक्सी नहीं होती.
मैं तारक रोड से निकलता था. PSCC वो छोड़ती थी 5 रुपए में. आज दिन क्या हो गया डैनी?
I do remember कि मैं बस लेता था from Liberty तारक रोड से लेकर दो तलवार. I used to pay 15 rupees. So
16 रुपए तो मेट्रो बस में चला जाता था मैं यार, गुलसाने जौहर. So yeah, I mean things were obviously a lot more cheaper, but I mean social media भी तो है. So like जब मैं theatre plays कर रहा था, मैं posters दीवारों पे जाकर लगाता था, रेडियो वालों से भीखे मांगता था. प्ले टीवी से मैंने पार्टनरशिप की थी कि यार मेरे ऐड चला दो. टीवी पे ऐड आते थे because there was no other way, right? If you had to sell out an arts council, ये सब करना पड़ता था. अब तो ना कोई रेडियो चाहिए आपको, ना कोई टीवी चाहिए.
Instagram or Facebook.
Yes, if anything, if a radio partnership wants to come on board, it'll be a plus for them to have us on board as opposed to them being a plus for us.
Yeah.
कि अच्छा यार हम उनके रेडियो शो पे चले जाएंगे. It'll be a good thing for them. So social media ने उस तरह से थोड़ा आसान तो कर दिया है. B venues और कौन से थे यार उस टाइम? बेबी ऑडिटोरियम था, PSCC थे,
कैफे ब्लू था. There was, they still have gigs at Evolution अगर याद है.
Yeah.
The Joint के नाम से एक जगह था.
Purple Haze पे भी अंडरग्राउंड सीन था but म्यूजिक का नहीं.
But I mean there was like the Joint, there was Basement. I don't know if you remember some shisha bars called Shabistan. They used to have gigs as well. PACC पे regular gigs होते थे. Like they used to give the option कि आप यहाँ तो बाहर parking lot वाले area में करें या फिर अंदर auditorium के अंदर कर लें. तो I mean, the accessibility to these venues, accessibility of putting on shows has become a lot less that way. To that extent, even T2F bhi tha, like it's not as it was before, in terms of having an accessible space to go do shows. The first time I went and met Sabine to do a show over there, she was just like, haan kar lo. And I was like, okay, what's the cost behind this? She's like, we just split it 50-50 after we've covered all the costs. And I was just like, who are you? So yeah, I mean, like, I think like, meeting someone like that at a time like this, like, it also kind of shaped the way we do our shows now and how we distribute the profits from shows and stuff. तो yeah, I mean, इस टाइप की जगह नहीं है अब,
यार people also think के artists पैदा हो जाते हैं, वाह अभी उस्ताद हैं, ये पैदा हो गए. नहीं, artist society बनाती है, right? So people like Sabine, that's how we started doing comedy shows. People are often like, आपने क्यों शुरू किया? भाई वो इतना आसान था कि आपने जाके सबीन से बात की, उसने बोला T2F ले लो, आपने शो कर लिया, लोग आ गए, अच्छा हो गया, आपने PACC पे कर लिया, फिर आपने T2F पे करते रहे, फिर मैट स्कूल पे कर लिया. तो ये चीज़ें नहीं होती. तो मैं पागल तो नहीं था कि मैं शुरू में ही जाके PACC पे, इफ दिस इज 2010, तब तक कुछ 30-40 हज़ार, तब 30-40 तो नहीं होगा, बट 30 ऑड तो था ही PACC. मैं स्टूडेंट में कहाँ से वो पैसे लाता सारे. So because T2F existed, because Mad School existed, because people like Sabine existed, so many artists could experiment, do shows, find their own audience at T2F, and then go on to bigger things.
Yeah, I mean, it helped. It definitely helped people like kind of like cultivate their own scene or cultivate a scene, because there was access, most importantly, access to a space.
This
keeps going like this. But I mean, having access to a space, or a cultural space for that matter, or a community space for that matter, it makes all the difference, man. Like, I mean, us lihaz se there is KCR, which is Karachi Community Radio, and they do stuff, but like obviously they don't have a space to host shows in their own space. So it's more like an online sort of thing. But in terms of actual physical spaces and having accessibility to do something or to cultivate a scene, wo ab zyada nahi hai. Right? I can't even think of any right now at this point in time.
I mean, 432, but वो भी financial model पे है.
Yeah, it is a financial model, and rightfully so as well. I mean, we all know what it's like. Like, the cost of living has gone up, the cost of rent and everything. Running a space, maintaining a space is expensive.
Commune try किया आपने?
यार कम्यून पे हम करते थे back in the day, काफी कुछ, like I think Forever South के ज़माने में we used to do quite a few shows over there. Commune पे भी like rental होता था, like a minimal sort of thing. But obviously like उस time पे it also came down to the accessibility of the space. There was like lots of like robberies happening outside, this and that. So that's I think why we'd stopped doing stuff. But from what I know, अब तो वो shows के लिए नहीं देते हैं. From what I know, it's been a while. I don't think they have had any shows in a while now.
Down लग रहा है डैनी, कुछ हैप्पी बातें कर लेते हैं. नेपाल कैसा रहा आपका?
Nepal was lovely as usual.
देखा फॉरेन से स्माइल आ गई. यार फॉरेन कराची की बात कर रहे हैं, सैड हो रहा. काठमांडू कैसा रहा?
Kathmandu was lovely. We were there on a multicultural project. So there was Cape Mons Records dialed in from the UK, Wavelength Festival from India, and Kalo 101 from Nepal. We had come together and applied for a grant with the British Council, and we got the grant, and the entire idea of that was to bring native South Asians and South Asian diaspora together to come together and collaborate. So it was kind of like a residency, which, for every Pakistani there was a British Pakistani, and for every Nepali there was like a Nepali diaspora and so on. And so we got them all together to meet, collaborate, hosted workshops and shows. And they've created some wonderful music. But most importantly, this also started like a dialogue between native South Asians and diaspora in terms of what the South Asians' needs are not exactly what the diaspora's needs are, in terms of what they're trying to preserve versus what we're trying to promote. So having these conversations very openly was also a very, very important part of this residency, and I think we've started to understand each other a lot better since then. And so hopefully this is something that we keep doing. Because we realized that we're on to something.
Expand करो, क्या आप preserve करना चाह रहे हैं, क्या वो promote करना चाह रहे हैं?
Yeah, देखो वो बात ये है कि like for example, there's a festival called Alien. These was one of the partners over there. So it's mainly made up of diaspora, brown people that are celebrating their brown culture and their brown heritage, right? And so what that does for a place like the UK is it's lovely because, a lot of people are disconnected from their roots and they want to promote their own culture, want to promote their own sound and, celebrate their heritage. Versus when we come together as natives towards these kinds of spaces, it's like, okay, agar koi, like this is what it's seen as, right? Like if we go there and we see what they're playing in their DJ sets and stuff, we're like, yaar, it's almost like a mehndi. Right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but like it what we find cringy, they find maybe like, this is our culture and this is what we should celebrate. So it started like a conversation around like, okay, if the South Asian natives who are making electronic music right now or experimental music or whatever of that sort, which isn't embedded in our roots or our folklore, our culture. Like, for example, let's take Natasha Ijaz, for example, because she was the resident artist from Pakistan, right? So you take Natasha Ijaz's Stupid Happiness Theory wala project, which is a little more electronic. If you were to take that and put it into a sort of setting where what we see as like mehndi music is being played, so it's not something that she really needs access to, because we have enough of it here, right? So then it kind of like started this conversation around that you guys are trying to preserve a culture that doesn't exist around you, so you're trying to build that culture. We come from the culture that already has an abundance of it. So what we need is access to the spaces that you regularly have, right? And if you want to come and have that exchange, then we can, obviously make you meet these folk musicians and make you meet all these other artists and stuff like that if you're ever in Pakistan. So it is really about that exchange, right? Like someone from Pakistan should be able to go to the UK and play in a club, right? And someone from the UK should be able to come over here and play in the same kind of setting. If they want to, or to just like play those Bollywood tunes if they want to, right?
Why not?
वो
तो अच्छे लगते हैं.
वो तो है, but like see for us it's a commercial show then, right? Like for example, like अगर Bollywood nights होती हैं यहाँ पे, like people do have those parties and stuff like that, but it's looked at as a more like commercial scene or a commercial venture. Like an Awami type scene.
एक सेल्फ हेट भी तो है ना हमारे अंदर, हमें अपनी चीजें बुरी लगती हैं. लाइक वो आई नो हमारा नहीं है, यूके का है, बट लाइला के सेट में बॉयलर रूम में व्हेन शी प्लेज दैट क्लोजिंग ट्रैक, हाय इट्स सो मच फन, राइट? आई डोंट थिंक एनीबॉडी टर्न्स अराउंड. आई नो कुछ मे बी बर्गर बच्चे would be like, क्या हो गया bro?
Of course, like boy, but like
bro, but I think it's a great set. वो पूरा सेट ही अच्छा है.
There's nothing wrong with that, but like I said, right, in a bigger context, I'm pretty sure that Laila won't play an entire set of Bollywood tunes, would she?
But if somebody does, it's most like, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, right? But I'm just saying, coming back to that point, कि अगर कोई Bollywood tunes constantly बजा रहा है, तो there's nothing wrong with it. But like for us, it's seen as like, the mainstream scene or like a commercial scene in that regard. So
अभी कल ही मैं रात को आपने as your Insta DMs testify, कल मैं रेव इंस्टा रील्स ब्लैक होल में चला गया था. तो कल ही मैंने किसी डीजे को फॉलो किया एंड शी वाज सैम्पलिंग सम बॉलीवुड म्यूजिक एंड वाज सो गुड. एंड इवन अभी आई डोंट नो इफ इट्स ट्रू और नॉट बट दे वर लाइक 2022 का एक पॉपुलर रेव गाना had sampled Arijit Singh and उसकी pitch up कर दी थी.
Possibly.
And it was so good.
Yeah.
So when they're playing Bollywood tunes, they're not like playing Bollywood tunes like वो जो मेहंदी में होते हैं, right? They're doing this kind of stuff which is still technically
obviously
sound.
Yes. It is definitely, there's nothing wrong. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, it has done brown culture a favor on a massive scale. Like there is like a whole club scene that revolves around using these samples, making mashups, making flips, making edits and everything like that. So what that does is it puts the global market, it makes the global market kind of focus on South Asian culture. It makes them focus on South Asian artists, which is a great thing, you know. But like I said, there has to be like a give and take sort of thing, right?
In a local context, if you're saying कि वो एक market है, Bollywood nights, ये वो, are you averse to doing those?
Personally,
yeah,
I wouldn't do it. Like, I like
4 lakh रुपए.
दे दो. आ जाओ.
मुन्नी बदना.
I'll do it.
No, but if there's a market for it, right? For instance, these dirty shows, right? मुझे कोई artistic fulfillment नहीं मिलती. ना मुझे उससे कोई content मिलता है जो मैं कहीं और use कर सकता हूँ, because वो मैं कर भी नहीं सकता, right?
हाँ.
But just there is a market for it.
Absolutely.
Like मैंने last time I was like मैं नहीं करूँगा अब, and my inbox was like आप कर लें, आप. I was like अच्छा यार कर लो.
Yeah.
ठीक है, it pays the bills. Even जब मैंने नौकरियाँ छोड़ दी थी, that was my primary source of income. तो मतलब कोई बुराई तो नहीं है if you are okay with, you know, compromising a little on your artistic integrity. Bollywood night with Alien Panda Jury, I think tickets बिक जाएंगी.
नहीं, there's nothing wrong with it. Like for example, even on our boiler room set as well.
उसका remix है, उसका कर गई चुल का, असफन का, so good, right? It's so good. It was playing in clubs around the world as well, no?
Yeah, I think Manara played it at a festival as well. I forgot which festival it was, but it was a pretty big festival. So
things like that Kar Gayi Chul remix, I mean, so good. So if you guys play sets like that, वो artistic integrity भी रहती है, audience भी आ जाएगी,
to an extent रहेगी,
पैसे भी बन जाएंगे.
Like it's one of those things, right? I don't envision myself playing 2 hours of just that. You know, I wouldn't mind mixing it up in between, like we did, but like maybe 2 hours of it, probably not.
Just from a commercial angle, right? Just having that.
I mean, if it's something that, like, you know, for your bread and butter and you really need to make money, then by all means, like, I'll do it. If you're paying me 5 lakhs, I'll do it.
अभी तो 4 पे मान गए थे, फौरन से 5 कर
लिया. चलो 4 पे भी कर लो, मैं दे दो मुझे पैसे, मैं कर लूँगा. Like I'll probably put earplugs in my ears and then wear. But like I'll give you a great example of someone that's doing it right is Natalia, right? Like Natalia started playing sets. What about 2 years ago, maybe year 2 years ago, and her entire brand is mixing Bollywood tunes with like a bit of tribal house and like, you know, that kind of thing. And she does it really, really well. And she's built a name for herself. She's got her own crowd. She's been hosting events.
Dude, ये जो girls night होती है district पे, it's always full. It's once a month, once a week.
I don't know. I think it's once
2 weeks. तो जब भी होती है.
It's back.
And ticket कितने की होती हैं?
I don't know, 3 से 5,000 के बीच
ठीक है. So girls night तुम्हें क्यों बताओगे टिकट कितने की होती है? हाँ, कितने की होती है? 3 से 4,000. And कितने लोग होते हैं? Like 300?
Probably. I mean, it's a successful model, and I'm glad it's happening.
That's great money for everybody, right?
It's great. It's also great that there's a safe space for women to go and party here.
Yeah.
So like, you know, that's a great thing as well in itself. But I'm just saying, coming back to like Natalia's brand of music, she's doing a great job at it. You know, if Natalia were to go and play at one of these festivals in the UK or something, it would make a lot more sense than, you know, someone like myself going there and playing or something like that. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, she's done it well. She's made a name for herself. She's got a brand, and she enjoys doing it. That's the most important. But you need to enjoy what you're doing. I don't think I'd enjoy what I'm doing if I was playing Bollywood music, because it's not something I dig. I have nothing against it.
But that's fine then,
Yeah.
because वो जो एक वो है क्या market नहीं है, corporate नहीं है.
Yeah, I'm just talking about
the market is
the thing
there.
Is we've waved off the kind of thing, but
I'm just saying the market is there. The corporates are also there. You just have to meet them there, and if you don't, that's also fine.
I was talking about it in a cultural exchange context. So if you come back to that, then from that sense, it might not make sense to all the artists.
So even from that aspect, आप जब जाते हैं Germany गए थे ना?
I went in 2016 to 2017. Yes.
So when you played your music, I'm sure they were like, "This is great."
I mean, वो था, but that's also because there is a scene for so many different kinds of music in a place like Berlin. Like Berlin is one of probably the biggest artistic hubs in the world. Take it from actual like music se lekar like art and culture and everything. It's such a multicultural place, and I think udhar jo hai, like it's also more about like how educated the audience is in terms of being open to newer music. Pakistan mein, I feel, and this is my own personal opinion, I feel that like audiences do not like change very much. You'd rather listen to something that is digestible than try and understand something which is slightly different.
मैं 2-3 साल पहले भी पार्टीज पे गया हूँ जहाँ सेटिस्फैक्शन चल रहा होता है, हम लाइक यार कैफीन पे चल रहा होता है, शीशा पीते थे हम 2007 में इस गाने पे, बस कर दो तुम लोग.
लेकिन स्टूपिड बात भी एक है ना, एक ये स्टूपिड बात ये भी है which I personally experienced as an international artist even in Nepal. So recently, I don't know if you saw the story, there was a promoter that had contacted me and
उसकी ले ली थी आपने?
हाँ. So basically this promoter got in touch with me and they were like, we're bringing this international artist and we'd really like you to play, and we've spent so much money on the setup and it's going to be extremely sick, और हमने ये वाला lighting rig लगाया, ये वाले projections होंगे, ये SMDs होंगे, sound system ये आ रहा है, ये वाले artists आ रहे हैं, and everything like that. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. What's the offer? What's the fee? This is my rate. It's like, oh, I thought you'd do it for the community. I was like, it's a really weird flex, man. Like, you're telling me that you spent all this money, you're doing this show, and you have all of these things, but you're not paying me. You're flexing that you spent a lot of money. You're not planning to pay me, and then you mention community. I literally lost it. I was like, how can you mention community when you didn't think about the community first and to compensate the community first, right? So this is where I have a problem with that scene. But at the same time, bring an international artist to a show, your tickets will sell out. People might not even know who this artist is, but just the fact that it's an artist from abroad, it doesn't necessarily need to be a white person. It just needs to be from a different country, and your tickets will sell out. This is like a known model for shows that happen in Pakistan. Yes, the overhead is high by bringing like flying someone in from say Europe and then unko hotel stay dena and everything. It comes up like it's an additional maybe 300,000 rupees.
So Alex Cruz आया था. I doubt anybody in Pakistan knew who Alex Cruz was.
Yeah.
Actually बहुत अच्छा क्या Utopia was that the company? Sure. I forgot. अच्छा event था. He was good. Everything was good. But because Alex Cruz आया हुआ था, सब पहुंच गए. Packed थे, सब पहुंच गए थे. It was like a big thing.
Yeah. But like I said, this example I was giving you is that when I went to Nepal and I was playing. Now I've played in Nepal before, but this is the first time I returned back after 5 years and as a DJ and playing DJ gigs. And I noticed this firsthand. Like I'd go see my friends' shows or go to the club when they'd be playing one of those nights and ginti ke 30-40 log honge. So yeah. The night I played at one of these bars, they had promoted it as a DJ from Pakistan. He's played Boiler Rooms, done this, blah, 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 all of these things. And then there was some local support. When I got there, the place was packed.
That's because you're good.
No, it's not.
That's because you're so
like,
good. Not
I'm pretty sure more than half of that crowd did not know me. Being very, very honest here. And this is a conversation that I had with the locals, right? And this is why these cultural exchanges, these trips are so important, because you have to understand that this is not just a Pakistani problem. I initially thought it was a South Asian problem. But when I put up that story about this promoter contacting me, there was a producer from Belgium that reached out to me. He's like, this is the exact same thing that happens here. There was a producer from Australia that reached out and he's like, this is the exact same thing that happens here. So this is not just a Pakistani issue or a South Asian issue. This is a global issue. कि इन scenes के अंदर इस तरह होता है. The minute you bring like an international artist into the fold, you don't necessarily need to know who the person is. You know, it's just I don't know if it's a psychological thing or like, you know, people just don't like supporting their own scenes. Really not sure what it is. You know, or it's more like, you know, जैसे हम cover bands में बजाते थे back in the day, right? We used to think we were the shit, right? But the actual people who were making original music are probably like, yeah, these guys are just like a bunch of posers that are making, like, who are emulating other people's music, right? So even if I am sitting at home making my own music and I'm DJing sets and stuff like that, so there's probably a bunch of people thinking about, like, in Pakistan, they think, yeah, it's just another DJ that's, you know, trying to imitate someone from abroad. So the minute you bring someone from abroad, there's like a certain sense of credibility. I'm not sure what it is.
But you make original music.
I do make original music as well. So but I'm just saying, it comes down to that, right? Like, no one necessarily needs to understand or want to try and understand कि बंदा इधर क्या कर रहा है, क्या like क्यों कर रहा है ये वाला म्यूजिक, क्यों बना रहा है।
कॉमेडी में भी यही था, वो कॉमेडी मसाला जब होता था, जब 3 कॉमिक्स आते थे, किसी को भी नहीं पता होता था कौन है, एंड टिकट्स उसकी महंगी होती थी और शोज अच्छे होते थे, एंड दे वर वेल डन, एवरीथिंग वाज गुड, बट द फैक्ट दैट वो इंटरनेशनल कॉमिक्स आ रहे थे वाज अ गुड सेल.
Yeah, but like coming back to the whole Nepal thing, when this happened, so like I was playing places packed, everything, I was like, okay, it was a great show, no doubt. But like my local friends would tell me, like, if you weren't playing here tonight, this place would be empty. You know, even though we had like great local support and all these things. And for the most part, I didn't believe it, because I was like, the thing is, whenever I go to Nepal, I'm so constantly impressed by Nepal scene, because like they make such good music there. There's such a good like musical ecosystem. There's so many venues. There's something happening every night. You know, somewhere or the other, kuch na kuch to ho raha hai. Albeit like 80% of it is very commercial, but there is still something, right? And I was like, yaar, aisa nahi hai. And like, even as someone that used to host a festival there many years ago, I was like, we used to have a decent turnout. And again, they're like, this is because you guys were a whole bunch of international artists with us, right? So I was there for like a month and a half this time, and I spent a lot of time, and I'd go to the clubs and see my local friends' shows over there. And for the most part, most of it wasn't, it wouldn't sell out as much, or it wouldn't be as packed. But the problem also lies within the scenes, and this is a problem that also exists in a place like Pakistan, right? So there was a new artist that I had made friends with, and there's another artist who I made friends with 8 years ago. They were both playing at the same club one night, and the newer, younger guy had opened, and वो बजा रहा था, and then when he got done, so him and I went to go grab a drink. और जब हम लोग बैठे हुए थे, तो my other friend who was also playing that night, who I met 8 years ago, he had just finished and he joined us. And I was already speaking to this younger guy before, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I played like 8 shows with him, but we don't talk. Like, he's like, I'm a huge fan of his, and I'm usually influenced by him, but we don't talk. Like, this entire crew doesn't, like, you know, there's like some kind of tension. And I'm like, why? So when that guy came around, I introduced them to each other. And this guy only knew his alias. He didn't even know his actual name. So I was like, I took his actual name, and he's like, oh, that's your name. I was like, yeah, that guys meet. Like, you know, you guys play similar kind of music and stuff like that. And so I introduced them, and then I got up and I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and then my older friend was like, he's like, हाँ, I know him, you know, I keep meeting him and everything, लेकिन हम, you know, हम बात नहीं करते क्योंकि हम वो local है. And I was like, क्या बात कर रहे हो यार? I was like, why are you even saying that? I was like, I can't believe you are saying this to me. Why is it that you're not talking to each other because you're locals?
घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर.
Cheap scene है ना? और ये वाला मसला, Ghias, this also exists here as well.
Really?
People would rather compete than collaborate.
Really?
Yeah.
इतना छोटा तो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक म्यूजिक. अच्छा हाँ.
Think about it.
अच्छा.
Does it not exist in the comedy scene also?
नहीं.
Like jealousy नहीं होता. Like वो उस दिन को ये शो कर रहा है, मेरा भी उस दिन को शो है, इस टाइप का. I'm sure हुआ.
नहीं.
इस टाइप के भी scene होता है.
नहीं. एनवी तक जा सकता है.
एनवी ना तो
यार इसको ये क्यों मिल गया, मुझे क्यों नहीं मिला. बट ऐसा कभी नहीं होता कि मैं अब इसका शो बुरा करूंगा. नहीं
वो उस टाइप की
या ये भी नहीं होता कि मैं इससे बात नहीं करूंगा. आई मीन ऑब्वियसली लोग पर्सनल फड्डे हो जाते हैं पर्सनल चीजों पर, बट नॉट नहीं कोई सीन ही नहीं है कंपटीशन का.
But anyway, coming back to like now recently I spoke to the guy, the younger chap, and he's like, oh, now we're talking, like, you know, we're constantly like playing shows together, and like, you know, we're talking about the music scene. He's asking me to send me his music and stuff like that. I was like, shukar hai yaar, like apne logon se baat karo, talk to your own community. It's so important, right? Like it's so important for the community to get together and understand each other's concerns and build a community from there. Varna nahi hota.
Do you feel that maybe where the reason why I was a little surprised is because I know all of you who are friends and do shows together and there's a healthy community, but थोड़े जो boomer DJs हैं who've been doing it for maybe 10-15 years, they maybe look at all of you as upstarts.
Well, that's even the music scene in general. You know, the senior musicians demand respect without really even.
तो पाकिस्तान का मसला है. हर जो बाबा होता है उसको लगता है कि क्योंकि मेरी उम्र ज्यादा है तो सब मेरी इज्जत करें. भले
and they won't necessarily be good musicians either. You know, it's just like a seniority sort of thing for some reason. But yeah, I'm sure there are lots of people that do think like that about us. But at the same time, there is also a senior community that also respects what we do. You know, I think a great example of a senior musician who really respects the new generation is someone like Umran. You know, like Umran, even when we started with Orange Noise, was super, like, you know, like he really like helped us out and like pushed us as well and was a huge fan of the work we did. So, I mean, it really comes down to like people's own egos and perceptions of what a community or a musical community should be and how to like kind of nurture it. The right word is nurturing it, right?
Do you also feel that musical trends play a part in this? कि अच्छा भाई progressive और bass जो वो high bass का एक ज़माना था, and now it's maybe a bit more techno.
नहीं यार,
EDM.
The progressive and the EDM scene is still there. It's very much there, and it's a big healthy community, to be very very honest. And you know, they're the ones that are doing shows and having shows on a bigger scale, but these aren't necessarily the people that are inviting like the techno community or the bass community or the D&B community to their shows, because either they maybe want to just keep it that way, or they don't want the new blood to come in. It's either that.
ये नहीं होता कि यार ये
I can't make a commentary on it because I'm not part of that.
But ये नहीं होता कि यार ये तो वो टेक्नो बजाते हैं, वो बकवास होती है. ये जो बेस वाला होता है ना, ये असल.
I'll give you an example of what happened. अभी in March, I went to Lahore to play a show. सही है. और उसमें भी that's when I did it for the community, because I had asked for a fee and they're like, यार आपका टिकट हम कर लेंगे, बस आकर बजा लो. We want to really promote your genre of music into like our events. I was like, चलो, someone's at least trying, right? तो मैं जब गया उधर, उनके यूजुअल्स बजा रहे थे. तला और मैं दोनों गए थे. तो उनके यूजुअल्स बजा रहे थे. तला then played. I was supposed to play right after Tala, but one of those legends from that scene jumped onto the stage of अपना control डाल दिया. Like, नहीं मैं बजाऊंगा अभी. I was like, चलो सही, बजा लो यार, इसके बाद मैं बजा लूँगा. then the organizer like, आप इनके बाद बजा लें. I was like, चलो सही है. तो वो बजा रहे थे. I was like, यार घंटा हो गया, 1.5 घंटा हो गया. I was like, मैं बेदिया में हूँ. Like it's like रात के 12 बज रहे हैं अभी. मैं I don't even know how I'm getting home. And I was like, यार मुझसे बजवा लो. Like, you know, like it's been an hour and a half. And so I went. He's like, हाँ आप stage पे चल जाए. I went on to stage. and the guy was just like खुसपुस कर रहा था organizer के साथ, and वो अपने boys को बुला रहा था कि take over like the decks from him, right? And I was like, यार मैं थोड़ा सा तंग भी आ गया था. I asked the organizer, I was like, यार मुझसे बजवाना है या मैं घर चले जाऊँ? He's like, नहीं आप बजाएं. I was like, तो यार give me the decks then, right? And that guy that was playing, he turned, he's like, bro, can you handle the vibe? This is what he said to me. He's like, bro, can you handle the vibe? And like, there are a bunch of people dancing. I was like, just let me do my thing, man. You know? So then he got off, I plugged in and everything. So 5-6 और boys उस community में से आए, they got into stage. And he's like, यार ये कौन है? क्या बजाएगा ये? And everything. So they saw me setting up. So obviously, like I play much faster music than obviously the progressive scene or whatever. So I had queued up my first track and it was about 136 BPM, and there's like this one guy behind. He's like, "Nahi, ye bahut tez bajayega, nahi, ye bahut tez," and he just like ran off, and I was like, "Just let me do my thing, yaar." I started playing. People were going crazy. There was at least like 200 people in front. They were dancing like mad. 20 minute baad organizer mere paas aaya. And he's like, bro, people want you to come off. I was like, there's 200 people just dancing in front of me right now. Don't tell me people want me to come off. Tell me someone else wants me to come off. So he's like, हाँ यार bro, I'm sorry, बस आप उधर जाए. I played a 20-minute set and I got off. So
सबक क्या सीखा आपने?
सबक मैंने ये सीखा कि अगर कोई टिकट भी सिर्फ करा रहा है ना, उनसे पैसे भी निकलवाओ.
आपने सही सबक सीखा.
सही है.
जितना आप किसी को फेवर करते हो उतना वो आपको समझता है. ये मैंने जिंदगी में बहुत दफा गलती करके ये सीखा है कि if people get you easy, they treat you like shit.
Sure, but like
so आप अपनी तरफ से लोगों को फेवर कर रहे होते हैं कि अच्छा यार दोस्त है, ये है वो है, वही सबसे ज्यादा आपकी.
But at the same time, right? At the same time, I discovered a great collective in Lahore called Infinity, and there's just 3 guys. And so Ozzy, who played on Boiler Room, is the guy that runs Infinity, and he runs that collective. So at the same time, you know, like these kinds of things, these links somehow get made. You have to do some shit as well to find the right people. Also, you know? So for example, also, we're talking about the seniority thing, right? Like when I was co-curating Boiler Room and we had sent in those list of artists and it got selected, you know, it was a very diverse range of 9 artists. Actually 10, there are 9 sets, but there are 10 artists. And a lot of like people that I've known from the community, not necessarily who have been my friends or anything, but just like by association from way back then. मुझे like all sorts of like screenshots भी लोग मुझे भेज रहे थे about what other people are saying about me. लोग मुझे directly भी message कर रहे थे. I got a lot of hate. And it honestly did a number on my mental health at that time. I remember Boiler Room jab roll out hua, I came over here for a podcast. I was not in the right state of mind, I'll be very honest with you. It did get to me because like a lot of people were like, yaar, how could you leave me out? Or how could you, like, I've been doing this for like 10 years. How could you leave me out? Or
but you weren't selecting them.
I wasn't necessarily selected. I had put a list forward and then selections were made from that, right? And then a final selection was made from it. So basically there was like argument around like, for example, why were people like the younger musicians on in the sets? Like someone literally said, okay, who is Ozzy and who is Malik? And I was like, those are probably the 2 people that delivered like solid fucking sets.
Liquor.
Like it got really but like for me it was like I needed something that balanced out the new and the old, right? Like it was very, very important to me कि misrepresent ना हो जाए. I don't want it to be like just my crew jumping onto this, right? There has to be like a spread from different collectives, from different communities, different sounds, diversify everything so that an entire scene is represented rather than just one pocket of it. You know, so for me, I had to really stick to my guns and be like, no, I know I made the right decision with this. Like, this is how it has to be. Kind of thing. And if you're offended, I'm sorry, yaar, मैं क्या बोलूं? Sorry बोल दूंगा. khair, hopefully there'll be another chance for you sometime in the future. At least let us start here.
एक अनएजुकेटेड ईयर के लिए क्या फर्क है? टेक्नो क्या होता है? प्रोग्रेसिव क्या होता है? हाई बेस क्या होता है?
I mean, like
EDM क्या होता है?
There's different like grooves, there's different vibes, there's different speeds to all of this. It's a personal choice really as to what you vibe to. Like, वही वाली comes back down to this same thing. अगर मैं techno बजा रहा हूँ, वो Bollywood वाला crowd is not going to like it. In that crowd.
I like techno, यार.
Yeah, I know you do, but like not everyone does, right? Like वही बात है ना जो मैं लाहौर में बजा रहा था. The guy was like holding his head like, नहीं ये बहुत तेज बजाएगा.
Because techno is तेज.
It's तेज. Like I mean, there's also like there is like also down tempo stuff as well, but like at least the kind of stuff that I'm playing is high energy, very groovy. It's got lots of break beats and things like that. Because that's something I enjoy. If I'm not going to enjoy what I'm doing, तो मैं क्यों बजाऊं?
Break beats क्या होता है?
Break beats are like like tick, tick, tack, 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 that kind of stuff. Like
पीछे चल रहे होते हैं. वही तो. वही उन्हीं का तो सीन है. अगर आपने स्पेस में घूमना है तो उन्हीं का तो गेम ही उन्हीं का है सारा.
But for me, it was like the transition to DJing and playing in clubs and stuff like making club music or playing club music has also been a transition, which is why I started the Kukido moniker. I just think that I don't know why. I just kind of didn't want to use the APJ name for it because I was like, whoa, that's its own thing. And also, I think I reached a point where I just could not write words anymore. And like, I think that the last ever song I wrote words for was after 2 days after my mom passed away. And then I couldn't record it because I couldn't bring myself to sing it. And I was like, I need something else to do where I can get this kind of stress out. So I was like, okay, aggressive dance music it is. So yeah, in a way it's cathartic.
Interesting.
It's very.
Isn't Kukido like more boppy than APJ as well?
What do you mean, boppy?
Like, isn't more like...
Yeah, it's more dancey. It's more like...
And that comes from like a sadder, more aggressive place.
It comes from an aggressive place because like...
I feel APJ is a darker...
APJ is a very emotional sort of place. Like those are like... a lot of my APJ writings come from like life experiences. So that's like, ideally something bad, like anything from heartbreak to actually extreme love or anything monumental that happens. To me emotionally is when I start writing. That is my outlet for writing. When something highly emotional happens, I write words. And that's my outlet. But I found that when I'm like grieving or if I'm in a bad state of mind where I feel like there's a tension in my body that's making me like, when your neck gets tight and your shoulders start hurting, I just need to listen to aggressive music to like move and get it out of my system. So that's why that started, and I think the pandemic was the perfect time to start that because
how does your mood like? So if you're playing, जिस तरह मैं अगर compare करूँ, मैं अगर stand up comedy कर रहा हूँ, मेरा mood doesn't matter. ठीक है ना? I could be dealing with the worst thing in the world right before going on stage, but if I'm on stage,
everything else blanks out.
I have to, right? Like I can't. मतलब मैं sad नहीं हो सकता. ठीक है ना? मेरी जिंदगी में जो भी चल रहा हूँ, मैं अगर स्टेज पे आ रहा हूँ, मुझे पैसे मिल रहे हैं, I have to perform that role, right?
Yeah.
So when you're playing, does your mood affect? Because I'm assuming कि set तो पहले से ही decided होगा ना?
नहीं, पहले से नहीं decided. I guess there's a selection of songs, sure, depending on what slot you're playing at a show. Okay, for example, if I know I'm going on third or fourth or second last or last, then I'll have a separate selection of songs that I will choose from. But if I'm starting, then there'll be a much slower selection or something that builds up a vibe, right? So it really comes down to that. But mood really depends. Like, for example, this Lahore gig, again, I'll come back to it. Obviously, before going on, I was pissed off. And I was like, मैं अब सिर्फ aggressive गाने बजाऊंगा. So I started really hard and I started very fast as well, right? So for me, it was like, I'm angry now. मैं ये करने वाला हूँ. So that was my outlet, I guess. But yeah, mood पे depend होता है, obviously. But honestly, once you see how the crowd is reacting to your selections, then your mood just goes into the music kind of thing. Okay, acha, this is what people are vibing with. I'm also enjoying it. Let's all enjoy this together, that kind of thing. If we were to talk about like what the thought process is before going on the decks or anything like that, like even ballroom se bilkul pehle, I remember I literally went and took 5 minutes alone before my set was going to start. Us time pe, I think Laila baja rahi thi, and I was like, okay, I need 5 minutes to myself, because I really started remembering all the gigs I've played in the past 20 years, and all the monumental ones. My parents were at all of them, right? And I was like, this is a really monumental one. My parents are no longer here. So that really got me, and I was like, but if it wasn't for their support, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't push myself. If it wasn't for them pushing me this hard, I would, like, or supporting it, I probably wouldn't be here where I am today. So do this for them. I think so. Then by the time I got out and everything like that, and I was like fucking nervous. And once the music was on, then nothing else mattered, I guess.
This is the worst part of adulthood, dealing with this loss and grief.
Yeah, it is. But I honestly believe, like, this is, for me at least, it's like a bit of a healthy outlet. Just doing this, making other people also happy along with yourself. Like, it's such it's an exchange of energy, right? Like, especially when it comes down to DJ sets, even like performing music live as well. It's like, there is an exchange of energy. The only difference I found with when I was performing live music and when I still do perform live music is that when you have your own set of songs that you play day in and day out, again and again and again and again and again, the energy might still be there, but it becomes repetitive, right? So at some point you're like, it's kind of like if you've done the same jokes again and again, you also kind of get bored of it, and you're like, yeah, I need something different, I need something new, right?
That's what I meant. Like, I have to pretend like this is still, if I'm telling my jokes like main to 100 dafa suna chuka hu, they will not have a good time, right? I have to tell that joke like I still think it's the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Even
though it might not be to you anymore, right?
Obviously not, right? मैं 10 साल से सुना रहा हूँ. अभी किसी ने ट्वीट किया था कि मैंने किसी शो पे जोक किया, and they said ये शहजाद जोक कर रहा है, ये 2 साल पुराना जोक है. And then जब भी replied 7 साल से तो मैं सुन रहा हूँ उसको.
तो यही तो रहा था. At least like with DJing, like, sure, it might not put as much of a creative thought into your process of performing. But what it does do is it makes me listen to a whole lot more music. I'm doing things that I stopped doing, basically. And that's something that I'm really, really enjoying. Because the 6 years that I was, not even just 6 years, but like, actually, yes, those 6 to 7 years I was working at a studio, making other people's music or working on other things, I'd be so tired by the end of the day, I would not even listen to music. I stopped actively listening to music, So I started listening to music again and then making selections. I was like, oh, this would be great in a set, that kind of thing. Or not necessarily good in a set, but this is a great track, So I started actively listening to music again, which is something I did all my life. And I really started enjoying that. So the good thing about playing a DJ set is that I'm not playing a fixed thing every time, right? I can mix up different tracks that I've heard yesterday, or I can mix up tracks I heard a month ago. I can mix up tracks I heard 10 years ago. It really depends on what people are vibing to or how I'm feeling in the moment. Okay, chalo, this track will work with this one, that kind of thing. So just the kind of curiosity, discovery sort of thing of that, really, I enjoy it, yeah.
If I go back to the emotions and loss, do you consciously be like, I'm really sad right now, I need to play music? Or does it come out when you're playing music and you weren't expecting it, or wo us time bahar hai?
Yeah, there are different ways. It really does come down to what's working for you at the moment in time, because I also do get overstimulated. That's another thing.
Naturally or unnaturally?
Stupid. I meant like sensory overstimulation.
हाँ, तो मैं भी वही पूछ रहा हूँ कि naturally या you get by with a little help from your friends?
Naturally होता है.
अच्छा.
So like ये भी होता है, like, when I'm in a crowd of people, if there are too many people talking and yelling over each other, I glitch out. Like I can't have if someone else is louder than me in a room and I'm talking to someone like next door, like not next door, like side by side with someone, and if someone else is louder in the room, I cannot hold that conversation. So this happens when I'm listening to music as well. Sometimes there's too much music and I need to go sit quietly. So when it comes down to loss and grief, wala chakar, literally I really think these overstimulation type sensory sensitivity issues have come from that grief as well. Okay, the brain can only take so much that it can, right? And it does it well in short bursts, some things, and there's some things that you can do on autopilot. When I listen to a lot of music, there are points in time where I was like, okay, I need a quiet room. I'll take a break. So depending on if I'm feeling sad, my mind already knows if I want to be quiet and stay in one place, or maybe listening to music might make it feel better or distract me from. When I need distraction, music is the best thing, honestly speaking. When I really need to distract, but if I spiral out ho raha hota na, then that's when I'm like, okay, now I need to like do something different to stimulate myself in a different way.
Is that conscious? I'm asking, is that conscious channeling? Like for instance, I don't like, if something happens, I'm not like, acha, maybe use art as catharsis for this, and not comedy, but like script writing or writing in general. But वो fester होता रहता है wound, और फिर कभी ना कभी वही की तरह एक चीज आ जाती है, and you're just like, मैं तो सोने की कोशिश कर रहा था, अभी क्यों आ रहे हो तो, और वो उस वक्त निकल के आता है.
हाँ, नहीं, I don't know if it's actually it's a very good question, because I haven't thought of that like as a thing.
I do, Danny.
I think my brain just knows. I think it's a subconscious thing, very honestly. Like I don't consciously be like, I'm feeling this right now, this is what I should do. When I'm feeling something, I already know what I need to do. And it's either sit quietly or either go and do something. Recently I've found that another third thing that has come into it is that I've started playing Catan online. So it's just a board game. But like it's a great thing. Like, when I was like, acha, music bhi nahi karna, my ears are tired, I've worked all day, I don't even want to just sit quietly because I feel like I'm going to be brooding. So then I just play a game.
Judge करेंगे मुझे लोग. There's this thing called Cricket Captain.
Okay.
It's a simulation game.
Like Football Manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you know this, but मैं तो obsessively FIFA manager खेलता था. नाम में भी होता था. Like literally A-B teams ही उनकी बनी हुई होती थी, और मुझे पता होता था, अच्छा ये 10 साल बाद ये जो यूथ टीम में ना, ये फर्स्ट टीम में आएगा, क्योंकि मैं इतनी दफा खेल चुका था. तो I knew कि future stars कौन होंगे, which is why I don't watch as much football now as I did.
Yeah.
But I know कि ये बच्चे जो हैं, ये अभी बच्चे बहुत अच्छे हैं, क्योंकि ये फीफा मैनेजर आगे जाके अच्छे हुए थे. It doesn't always turn out. Connor Wickham एक स्ट्राइकर है, Andy Carroll जैसा ही था. It was like English number 9, and he used to be really good in one of the FIFA managers. I was really looking forward कि यार Connor नया इंग्लिश नंबर 9 बनेगा, पर उसका बहुत ही शिट करियर हुआ था, काफी लिमिटेड था वो. खैर, so I still play Cricket Captain, FIFA Manager not so much anymore.
And it's cathartic, right?
It's यार मेरे भी ब्रेन के बहुत मसले हैं ना, अनडायग्नोज्ड हैं, तो इसलिए मैं चलो नाम नहीं लेता, बट वही मसले हैं सारे. तो my idea of relaxation is to just provide some stimulation to the brain, ताकि मैं रिलैक्स कर सकूं. इट्स लाइक दैट टॉडलर कि अच्छा तू ये कर, लाइक
तू वो भूल जाएगा,
तू एटलीस्ट आई नीड टू बी डूइंग समथिंग टू रिलैक्स. आई नो इट साउंड्स अ लिटिल स्ट्रेंज, बट आई कांट जस्ट रिलैक्स, माय ब्रेन जस्ट गोज क्रेजी. सो वो क्रिकेट कैप्टन ये कि मुझे पता है कुछ खेलना नहीं है, मुझे वो ओवर्स खुद कराएगा, मुझे बस स्ट्रैटेजी बनानी है, बॉल क्या करनी है, क्या करना है, किस बॉलर लेना है, जस्ट इनफ सिमुलेशन टू द ब्रेन कि वो रिलैक्स कर सके. And when I'm overstimulated and there's too much and I'm stressed out, these things help. 100% they help.
I mean, that is also like watching TV shows and stuff. There are days where I don't want to watch anything also. Like usually हमारा like ritual है, before going to sleep, Sana and I watch something.
Japanese kids being tortured. That's one of them. Danny और सना ने मुझे डिनर पे बुलाया. मैं बोला यार डैनी बहुत अच्छा खाना पकाता है, मैं चाहता हूँ. एंड जैसे चलो टीवी पे कोई शो देखते हैं, मुझे लगा ऑफिस देखेंगे, फ्रेंड्स देखेंगे, ब्रुकलिन 99 देखेंगे, फन शो देखेंगे. सना लाइक दिस माय फेवरेट शो.
It's called Old Enough, Watch It, It's cute.
it's कोई Japanese show है. And this the 5-6 year old child has to do tasks
like an errand.
Not like an errand, like proper tasks. Like ये अब किचन में असिस्टेंट है.
नहीं यार, मार्केट से जाकर कुछ
मार्केट जाके मछली खरीद के लाओ. अब वो 5-6 साल की बच्ची, अब वो नीचे खड़ी हुई है सीढ़ियों की मछली लाकर, एंड देन लाइक तुझे सीढ़ियां भी चढ़नी है. It was that episode. और वो रो रही है, एंड इट्स लाइक उसकी हाफ द साइज ऑफ द चाइल्ड एक मछली है. और वो
it's a cute show, you gotta admit, man. It's cute. But like
फिर कभी नहीं get it.
But like वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि कभी कभार ऐसे भी होता है कि you know, someone's like, let's watch something. I was like, I don't really want to watch something today, or I'd rather watch something that is mindless here, you know. Because there are days where, like, you know, your brain has been so overactive that you can't just take any more in as well. So that's usually when I'm like, I just want like quiet time, or read something, or listen to something, or do nothing at all. Sometimes doing nothing at all is the best thing you can do.
आजकल के बच्चे जो है ना, अभी when we did the YBQ podcast, a lot of people were like, this is irrational, and I'm like, so हम लोग इतने उसमें फंस गए ना कि रैशनैलिटी या साइंस जो चीज़ कहता है वही होगा. नो, समटाइम्स थिंग्स जस्ट वर्क एंड समटाइम्स दे जस्ट वर्क फॉर यू. सो इस तरह एक यूट्यूब वीडियो है, इट्स कॉल्ड रिमूव मेंटल ब्लॉकेजेस. बाइन्यूरल बीट्स चैनल है, उसके रिमूव मेंटल ब्लॉकेजेस हैं. कुछ भी नहीं है, एक स्पेस में बोला है और वो म्यूजिक चल रहा होता है.
सही है.
It has some effect on me.
It works for you.
It just ठीक है. अब मुझसे कोई साइंटिफिकली पूछवा दे कि यार ये ऑडियो बकवास होता है, ऑडियो हीलिंग कुछ नहीं होता, ठीक है मैं मान लूंगा. It genuinely works for me. So like absolute death मेरा solution वो है, वो मैं चलाता हूँ. ठीक है, 2 टिश्यू मैं गीले करता हूँ और मैं अपनी आंखों पर डाल देता हूँ. Dude, like
it works. It like works. I honestly believe in sound therapy.
It works.
Yeah, I solidly believe in sound therapy that way. Like, but not like in the completely like sort of.
I mean, obviously, मेरी हड्डी टूट जाएगी तो मैं गाना नहीं चला दूँगा.
Not like in the whole conspiracy theory way कि oh they changed everything from 432 hertz to 440. Because they wanted to mess up the cell in your body or some shit like that. Like, this type of scene nahi, but I honestly believe like there's certain kinds of music that do really well to calm you down or heal you and stuff like that. So there's this one specific mix that I really, really, really like. And I always listen to it when I have like massive anxiety, or if I need help just like relaxing to fall asleep or something. There's a mix mixed by Strange Loop called Sounds for Dreaming, and it's got everything from like the Solaris theme to like a bunch of Brian Eno tracks, and it's just a 30-minute mix, but it's just so good, and it does so well. Anytime I'm anxious, I just listen to that. Like when I'm like मेरा बहुत बुरा जब सीन हो जाता है, like mad anxiety, so that's when I make the conscious effort कि ये सुनना मैंने. You know, so
मैंने आपका सेट भी साउंड क्लाउड पे बहुत सुना है. मिनी ट्रिप आउट जब मुझे करना होता है, आई थिंक इट्स योर ओल्ड नेपाल सेट. इट्स लाइक डाउन डाउन डाउन.
Which one?
And then it goes into the jungles.
Oh, that वो बहुत पुराना
साउंड क्लाउड में ना.
हाँ, वो that's the
starts very like intense, like dum dum dum.
The trail mix I think मैंने जो नोलन के लिए किया था, I think that's a while back.
बहुत फिट है. और फिर एंड में उसमें कोई आंटी के आलाप भी है.
अच्छा, ये तो एक
फुल जर्नी है.
You're talking about अनासर वाला album?
Not the album. It's a live. It's a live set. SoundCloud पे जो है, I think नेपाल का ये पुराना. Solid. Album भी सुना हुआ है मैंने. A से कौन सा है? अनासर तो नहीं है.
Anasir is the one with the alap wala thing which you're talking about.
No, which is that album with that body going into the air.
Oh, that's Enneagram. That's a lot.
That one. That's solid album.
Thanks, man.
असफन का भी टेक्नो एल्बम बहुत अच्छा था. EP था. हाँ, बहुत फिट.
अभी असफन का एक और आने वाला है on Cape Months. Another EP.
कहाँ से आ रही है ये वैसे एंजाइटी? कभी किया तुम? तो थेरेपी नहीं गए ना कभी?
Yeah, मैंने किया है. I've also done like EFT therapy back in the day.
What's EFT therapy?
Like emotionally focused transformation therapy. And it honestly like really did. I think last time I spoke to you about how I felt like I grew up with a chip on my shoulder sort of thing. And I honestly think that the turning point was after that therapy. Yeah. Became less of a dick.
I mean, ये तो हम लोगों से पूछो ना, ये तो हम बेहतर बता सकते हैं.
But like no, I haven't done like active therapy. But like anxiety, there's so many things, man. Like
rickshaw wale are like sugar is therapy.
Oh my god, what a story that.
नहीं बताते. People like you here. So EFT में क्या हुआ था?
Yeah, EFT में बस it's like I won't discuss के therapy में क्या discuss हुआ था.
What is EFT? Like what does EFT entail?
Yeah, so first of all, like it's a whole thing where you have to close your eyes and visualize things back to your trauma.
मुश्किल काम है यार ये तो.
बहुत मुश्किल है. It's very like obviously like मेरा मसला पता है क्या था? I told my therapist straight up. I was like, look, I have like this. I'm depressed as hell. I'm sad as hell. But it's been like 8 years since I cried.
High functioning depressive.
Yeah. So I was like, it's been like 8 years since I cried. I have I can't let go. I can't get this out of me. And so she like did these exercises with me, which made me visualize stuff way down to my childhood, as far back as I could go, and then retrace my steps from there as to what caused me those traumas and everything. And the one way to help me focus on those things was tapping. So while I'm doing all of these things, she'd made me like tap different parts of my body, that kind of thing.
And did you feel you were holding trauma in those body parts?
No, but I definitely did feel like the movement was a thing, right? Like it helps like kind of trigger a response from your body. So like, for example, when you're scared and sort of you tremble, right? So that's literally like an energy that needs to like leave you, right? So I think it's just one of those things, it's like just a practice, like a mental practice to like, kind of tap on this part of your hand or tap on this part of like your neck or on your face or something. It's just like a way to keep you concentrating rather than just sort of.
That's interesting because some children on the spectrum do that regularly. So maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe even if they've not been consciously taught. I mean,
this therapist did tell me that she's like, I'm pretty sure you are on some sort of spectrum as well. And it was actually, so the funny thing is you mentioned Enneagram, and she's the one that told me, she's like, have you heard of the Enneagram? So she told me, she's like, you're a type 4 wing 2, and I was like, what the hell does that mean? So in psychology there's an Enneagram, so there are 9 different personality types that there's 9
INFT EFNT वो वाले
हाँ
IFNT EFNT वाले जो चीजें होती हैं ENFP.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think so. I think वही वाला है. So I mean, she told me about this whole Enneagram thing, and she basically assessed everything down to why my personality is the way it is, and it's like, this is the kind of empath you are, this is the kind of, this is how you think, blah blah, and it's the most sense anyone has ever made to me about myself. So from that point, I know that my mind was transformed, and that's when, so Enneagram is the first time I made an album with writings about more positive things than my previous 2 ones. So that's why I was like, okay, this is like a turning point in my life. This is like a turning point with my brain. So it deserves something. And I wrote that for 6 years, even though it was just like 4 tracks.
And that's the last time you were positive in your life. I mean, COVID तक नहीं हुआ डैनी को. डैनी की लाइफ में इतनी कम पॉजिटिविटी है. 3 साल कोविड नहीं हुआ डैनी को. नहीं हुआ था. मैं यखनी ला के दी थी डैनी को.
But I mean, like, that's what I went through.
You feel like you got closure? You got some closure in
some.
There. Yeah.
Some. But obviously there have been new issues since then. Like I said, the grief thing is something that I have not
Do you feel
properly.
you have closure there? Because मैं Neil Brennan का special सुन रहा था. I fucking love Neil Brennan. Yeah, it's so good. That's the kind of comic I want to evolve into. And he was talking about things that happened before his dad's death, and it's just like, even listening it broke me. And I think the fact that he didn't get closure there really fucked him for life.
I think in both my parents' cases, closure though inherently tha before they passed away as well. And the closure was there because there was a diagnosis. We knew it was a terminal issue. Sahi hai? Wo to khair hai scene. Sahi hai? Like, we were prepared for the worst. Obviously with dad, we were told that he has maybe less than a year, or 1.5 mahine baad he passed away. Amma ke saath scene ye tha ki like my mom had sarcoidosis for many years. So that was like, like a whole 15-18 saal ka like journey. And every time the doctors would be like, acha, like ab inke paas itna hi time reh gaya. She'd always like rough through it, and she'd still work and did a lot of things. The thing is that in the end, it wasn't even the actual condition that caused her to pass away, She had dengue followed by multiple strokes, and then her kidneys eventually failed. But yes, the sarcoidosis had a lot to do with it. But we already didn't know, like pehle se, कि like ye hone wala hai. So us lihaz se, like the closure was there, कि we knew that this was going to end. Lekin there is nothing else that can prepare you for when your parents pass. There is absolutely nothing. Especially once Amma ke saath ye tha ki like I honestly felt like there was like a disconnect in my body. Like, and I thought about it on a very spiritual level. I was like, maybe because like I was in her womb for 9 months, and like she literally raised me up and like all of these things. So there is some sort of like severance that happens when that happens. So us lihaz se, there's nothing that can prepare you for that except realize that this is inevitable and this is what life is. And as time goes on, like even with dad's case, like you learn to live with the grief. So inke saath bhi yahi scene tha, like like I like the previous therapy wala scene hai, like I have issues with letting out emotion, So even like dad ke saath, when my dad passed away, I didn't cry. And then out of nowhere, like a year later, मैं बस पागलों की तरह रोने लग गया, just because I remembered something very, very significant that he did for me when I was a kid. And I was like, yaar, ye baap hota hai. Like, that kind of thing. Same thing with like mom. Like when that happened, nothing immediately. I remember I had a dream about something, and I woke up crying. And that was when I first cried about mom's death. So yes, like closure, sure. Closure hai कि we knew that was going to happen. But I don't really think you get over grief. You just learn to live with it. It's like it's your blood, yeah. It's like, it's a part of you. It's a connection. Like it's severed. It's gone. It doesn't exist except in another realm. But it's really funny. It's my mom's birthday today, actually. We're talking about this. She would have been 68 today. But like, like you learn to live with the grief, and you manage your way around it. I don't think it's like an overnight thing that happens. I think this is a process that takes time, and you learn to live with it. Like I accept it. I'm not saying I don't accept who I am, but I accept that they're not here, and I miss them. But
is it the worst grief you've ever felt?
Is it the worst grief I've ever felt? It's a very different kind of grief. I don't know how to explain. I think only, the funny part is only people that I know that have lost their parents, I can relate to what I'm talking about when I speak to them about it. And they're like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's something in you that just feels like it's just been cut off. And I what's it called? Specifically, people who have lost their mothers have felt this severance wala thing a lot more. So I'm pretty sure it can't be like a one-off thing. It really can't be a one-off. Like a lot of things about your own mentality, perception of how you see people or you see women in general, it kind of, something shifts there. like the mother figure wala thing.
It's this, I guess, we grow up thinking of our parents as like infallible, and then not having that.
Yeah, also it's like, you kind of grow, when you grow up old enough, you're like, yes, this person's constantly giving me instruction all my life, like mujhe chhod do, like, kind of thing, that teenage angst wala jo hota hai. But then when it actually does happen, then you're like, oh shit, this is why they were. That's also adulthood, to be honest. Okay, you realize why your parents are making you do certain things as well, right? It was like they're just kind of like trying to teach you what they kind of learned too.
It's just you don't see your parents as people now. Like it's hard. Like even all these things like empathy, wo. But you're like नहीं वो इंसानों के लिए ना, मतलब ये तो पेरेंट्स हैं. ये दीवे इनको थोड़ी मिल सकता है यहाँ पर कि ये लोग भी इंसान थे जिनके साथ कुछ हुआ है. exactly. उनकी अपनी जिंदगियां थी. और लाइक तो मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है, मेरे तो ये नहीं है ना. लाइक
एग्जैक्टली मैं यही सोचता हूँ ना. I was like, yeah, my mom got married when she was 19 and she had her first kid by the time she was like 20. And then she had me 11 years after that. So she was probably 31 when she had me. I was like, मैं 36 का I can't even think about having a kid right now. Like, क्या बात कर रहे हो? Like, how did these guys do this? Like, they really put themselves through a lot, man. Like, that's where you're like, oh shit, give them credit for that. And like, oh fuck, I treated them like shit. Like these kinds of things.
Guilt hota hai.
Hota hai, of course hota hai. Because you also think about all the times that you could have done things differently also, right? Like, when you've had that argument with your mom or you've had that argument with your dad kind of thing. And then you think about it as like, it's such a small, stupid, like insignificant thing that you got pissed off about, because in the bigger picture we all have to go someday and it's not worth the pada, that kind of thing. So wo guilt wo aate rehte, because when you think about it, you think about life, you're like, oh shit, ye bhi hua tha, kyun kiya tha maine.
I guess you also need to forgive yourself, because you were also young and stupid.
Of course, and I do. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, yeah. I mean, like I said, right, like when I have accepted के 10 साल पहले जो डैनी था वो अब वो नहीं है, and he was a bit of a douche. I can still be a douche if I want to, कोई issue नहीं है. But
कहाँ से ego आ रहा है? कौन लोग हैं जिन्होंने बोला है कि बड़ा डैनी अच्छा आदमी है? ये कौन तुमसे झूठ बोल रहा है? This is why you hang out with your old friends.
I also think like
no, I think Sana has been phenomenal for you. मैं सारा credit तुम्हें नहीं दूँगा.
No, there's no doubt about that, yeah. Like, but I don't know, man. Like, it's.
Do the last conversations help tying these things at all?
The what conversation?
Like the last conversations that you have with your parents.
Absolutely. I mean, the last conversations, yes, they do help. They help you understand. Like, what's really interesting is because some of the last coherent conversations you end up having are somehow the most meaningful, and you only realize that much later. Like for example, 1 month before mom had her stroke is when we got married, Sana and I. Or usse pehle, obviously, there's this whole process ke how are we going to get married and all of these things. And like, my mom has said, look, if you're happy, that's all that matters. Anything else around it doesn't really matter, kind of thing. And that's probably the nicest lesson I could have ever learned from anyone. Okay, it's a very live and let live sort of mentality that my mom had. And you don't realize it then, but it's something that you understand much later. Same thing with dad as well. Unfortunate baat ye tha ki like abba ka brain tumor wala situation tha, so the coherent, meaningful conversations didn't happen on his deathbed. Similar with mom as well. It was like hepatic encephalopathy, which is like when your kidney ke toxins go into your bloodstream, you reach a point of psychosis kind of thing. So, us point in time mein nahi hote meaningful conversations, but like somehow right before that, wo hoti hain, like for sure.
हमने सोचा था कि हम आज हैप्पी क्रिसमस बातों से.
No, but like I said, like talking about these things also is like cathartic as well, So it definitely helps. But yeah.
वो cheesy line नहीं है. That's the thing about grief. It demands to be felt or something. I think Fault in Our Stars type किसी की line है. But I think एक गलत. अब I don't know whether it comes from our culture, whether it comes from masculinity, or it's just personal to us as people. पता नहीं इल्ज़ाम किस किस पे डालें. But it's नहीं हमें बताया जाता कि यार in the moment feel करो. It's either जो भी defense mechanism kick in हो जाता है, either the rational mind kicks in where you're like ये करना है, ये करना है, ये करना है. Like even when my mom got COVID, like, I like it wasn't sadness. It was like अच्छा ये arrange करना है, ये oxygen चाहिए, ये चीजें करनी है.
Need to function, no?
Yeah, and somehow I was just angry at everything.
Yeah.
वो एक एंगर की तरह निकल रहा था because मर्दों को वो एक ही शेड देते हैं ना कि हमें जो इमोशंस फील करना है. And I'm old, so I've thought about all these things. I've spoken about all these things. I know all these things.
Yeah.
But in the moment, मतलब मैं ऑक्सीजन वाले को सुना रहा हूँ, मतलब कुछ फड्डे हो रहे हैं आपके unnecessarily. But it's not grief, it's not sadness.
Yeah.
But कुछ ना कुछ तो मसले चल रहे हैं ना जो इन जगहों पे ये चीजें निकल रही हैं.
Absolutely, because you are inherently concerned, right? So like there are certain emotions that come out in a different way. For example, even in like my mom's case, and this is something I went on to social media about, okay, there needs to be more awareness of it, so I'll use this opportunity as well. In mom's case, like her sickness got so bad that she went into multiple comas and was brought out of multiple comas many times. Like over the course of, I think 3 or 4 months, it happened about 3 times. And I remember we as a family started kind of getting into a bit of an argument with the doctor, okay, like, why aren't you giving her medication for comfort? Because we know that this is the end of the line. Like, why aren't you making her comfortable? The concept of, this palliative care, which is like, so the
Hospice.
concept, yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
So the concept of palliative care is very, for some reason, taboo in Pakistan. Because idhar kya hota hai ki like, agar doctor kisi ko bachata nahi hai na, uska family hospital ke andar ghus ke de tod-phod shuru kar dete. Even though it might not be the doctor's fault or anything of that sort. So the whole concept around palliative care is a very like taboo. It's like, oh, hum to ye nahi kar sakte. Wo hospital ka agar audit ho gaya to is tarah ho jayega, and like, this and that. And I was like, but this is no quality of life. Like, why are you lengthening a suffering kind of thing? So we had to have like a lot of conversations with the doctor over the course of 2 months till we reached a point where the doctor kind of agreed if we had signed off on like a waiver saying that we would not hold the hospital or the doctor responsible kind of thing. But it had already reached a point that there was no other option but to send her back home and let her go kind of thing. So even just that conversation lengthened everything by such a long time, So even these are like decisions that you reach, like suddenly you get angry and frustrated. Like hamara frustration reached a point that like, why are you making this person suffer this much now? Also,
Is it also because they could then charge you for a bunch of shit?
No, not really. This wasn't even like an expensive kind of situation, like in that regard. But it also, it really does come down to the culture of how things are here. Like palliative care apparently is only given to terminal cancer patients, and I believe in only 2 organized or 2 facilities in all of Karachi, from what I know. I know Aga Khan has one, but that's only for like stage 3 or beyond cancer patients and everything like that. But for anything else, it's not even an option that's considered, you see. So I don't know, man. There needs to be more like awareness of these things. The medical board needs to reassess how they look at what qualifies as palliative care and when it should be given and all of these things. So you even reach that point as well with your parents' health. Okay, like, yeah, maybe at this point, palliative care is probably the best way to go.
I think it's...
It also comes from a place of like seeing someone suffer, right? Like,
I think it's good solace. Even jab,
Absolutely.
when people are like, it suffers, like a good death is कि वो सो रहे थे और चले गए. I think the idea that
ideal situation
that they don't suffer is a good thing. Because वही बात है ना कि life आप at some point, after some point, आप अपने लिए प्रोलॉन्ग कर रहे हो, किसी की दूसरे के लिए नहीं कर रहे कि यार एक मेरे उसमें रहे. एंड आई नो इट्स ईजियर सेड देन डन. somebody in that situation, you can't just go to them and be like, no, just pull the plug, man. You're doing it for yourself at this point. I'm sure it's the hardest decision of their life. But अगर मैं as an outsider देखूं,
I think one thing that really helped, like me and my siblings, was the fact my mom was in and out of hospital for a big part of her life because of the sarcoidosis. And there's something that my mom told me, like I think maybe 10, 12 years ago. And she had straight up said, and she said this to me not once, but she said it to me multiple times. Okay, if you ever have to come across a situation where you have to put me on life support, don't you ever dare do it. Like straight up उन्होंने हमें बता दिया था कि if it ever comes down to this, don't ever do this. Don't ever put me on a ventilator.
Most people actually in Pakistan.
Yeah, like don't ever put me on a ventilator. Kind of thing. So every time we'd have to rush mom to the hospital, I'd actually ask them for the DNR form and I'd sign it. Because I was like, this is what she wants. If it comes to this, do not do it.
DNR.
Yeah. So...
यार डैनी बहुत मुश्किल काम है. बचपन कितना अच्छा था डैनी.
वाकई में
हम जाते थे तंदूरी हट, मिक्स मजा खाते.
मिक्स मजा.
कितने अच्छे दिन थे हमारे यार. हम ऐसे ही डिनर करने जिब्बी के घर जाते थे और फिर सुबह 7 बजे वापस आते थे. Tandoori hut ka menu was the funniest thing in the world.
It really was. I wonder if it's still the same.
I'm sure यार.
Mix मजा अभी तक है उसमें.
Mix मजा होगा ना उसमें. और तब तो इतनी सस्ता था. Mix मजा 150 में मिल जाता था. ठीक है ना कोई बिल पास करो, ना कोई मूवमेंट. 150 रुपए में मिक्स मजा मिल रहा है.
150 रुपए में मजे.
हाय, कुछ डैनी आपके रह गए जर्नी वाले, या लोगों के सवाल पूछ लूं मैं?
सवाल पूछ लें इससे पहले. Before we go to the questions, Cape Mons Records, I'm doing a plug now.
Yeah.
Cape Mons Records has Pakistan flood relief compilation out. 100% of all the proceeds go towards flood relief efforts. We're donating towards Mama Baby Fund, Eidi, Child Life Foundation, and it has 19 tracks. It's a really crazy compilation. Lots of people came together from all over the globe to put it together. Please buy it.
Please buy it. This is the life of a comedian. ये मेरे Google Docs होते हैं. Read this. मतलब कभी-कभी मैं सोचता हूँ, मैं जब वो फर्रे लिखता हूँ notes type, और कभी-कभी मैं भूल जाता हूँ जहाँ मैंने perform किया होता है. If they pick that up, that card, with the cues for my jokes, it'd just be like, ये कौन depraved soul है. Like ये एक नया bit है that I'm working on. It's called, चले छोड़े. Now it just sounds like I might as well say it because it's not as bad as people will think. It's a bit called My First Threesome. I mean, there's a joke in it. It's not what you think it is. Best fishing catch.
Best fishing catch.
Somebody who knows you.
Damn. Best fishing catch would be...
Unless तुम fishing भी कर रहे थे online.
यार, I think one of the best fishing catches was this 18 kilo surmai I caught, but one of the most tiring experiences was landing this 12 kilo tuna when I was I think maybe 18, 19 years old. It took me about almost an hour and a half to get it onto the boat. I fought that fish for that long.
So it's on the...
It's on a line, yes.
And you just have to...
Yeah, it's just so
So it, like you have to follow it.
You don't have to follow it. You're on the boat. So
Is the boat moving?
the boat is moving when the lure is in, but once the fish is on the thing, so you slow down the boat or almost stall the boat, and then you kind of have to fight the fish because the fish keeps trying to run with what it's thought it's eating. But there's a line attached to it. So it keeps pulling the line, and then you keep pulling it in, and then it takes another run. Then sometimes it comes close to the boat, goes under the boat, so then you have to go like.
Oh, wo to then you can lose the catch, right?
If you can lose the catch, it can snap. So if you turn your drag too tight and it tries to pull, you can snap the line.
Yeah.
So there has to be like a low drag as well, so that it keeps taking the line and not snapping it.
Yeah.
So then you reel it back in, and after maybe about 5 minutes, it decides it wants to go again, so it'll take away everything you've reeled in again. So.
ये one of my again therapeutic reality shows, like some of these shitty shows which just मुझे brain जब dead करना होता है ना, उसमें वो it's called wicked tuna, उसमें ahi tuna पकड़ रहे होते हैं.
Oh, okay.
Those are big. So उसमें once it's caught, it just runs and they just follow, and they're like
so
बस ये पीछे भागते हैं.
My dad used to call tunas the F-16 of the sea because whenever you'd get a strike, it just would not stop and would just keep taking line forever.
तो वो तो बोट चलाते रहते हैं, and then वो they're just like it has to tire itself out.
I mean, बोट चलाते रहते हैं, they slow down the boat, I'm sure.
I mean, to the pace of the.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure they're not like dragging it, but they just let the fish swim.
Yeah.
And कभी-कभी होता है कि 45 मिनट के बाद the line would just break.
Yeah. ये भी होता है.
क्या thrill है इतनी boring activity में?
Dude, this is a family thing we used to do. My mom, my dad,
Was
my
it fun?
sisters. Yeah, like we used to take family fishing trips when we were younger. We used to take part in like tournaments and stuff. So yeah.
Isn't it like very very boring till you catch something?
It can be,
I
but
guess
like
family बैठी हुई है.
it can be like, but with family and friends, it's kind of fun because we used to take cards on the boat. So like when the lines were in and no one's catching anything, we just play cards, or we'd eat something, or listen to music, that kind of thing. So like we used to play a lot of Antakshari on the boat too. So.
वो है सेंटा क्लॉज हमारा ला 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 ला. नाइस यार. अभी भी है ये recreational fishing culture?
बिल्कुल है, but it's become really it's a very expensive hobby. I'll tell you this much.
हाँ, मिडिल क्लास नहीं थे आप?
अब तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं हो ना, उस टाइम पे था.
Why don't you give online workshops? Why don't you?
Why don't I? Yeah, honestly, I really have to design a course that I am happy with giving. I did start giving some DJ classes, but like in uske liye bhi like time, man. I just need time.
मुझे नहीं दिया यार, मैंने इतनी भीखे मांगी. मुझे बोला जो कर रहे हो सही कर रहे हो. अल्लाह थैंक्स डैनी.
हालांकि कर रहे हो सही. So that's I was like,
बहुत टाइम से मुझे नहीं मिला टाइम मैंने.
Yeah, but I do intend on giving workshops and actually starting a proper course. It's I think that should be my New Year's resolution, to actually start teaching.
देखो यार, people are not here, so we shouldn't name any person because गलत होगा. But सवाल ये सिर्फ एक लफ्ज़ का है. It's called पाना. तो सवाल मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहता हूँ कि डैनी, आप बात कर रहे हैं, आप थेरेपी गए, आपने कंट्रोल किया, आप पाना पकड़ के किसी के पीछे क्यों भागे थे? ये आपने क्यों किया था?
क्योंकि वो उस टाइम पे सोचता था कि वो कॉमेडियन है.
तो वो था ना,
अब जाकर बना है ना वो.
नहीं था तब भी. I don't even remember what I was saying.
यार,
what did I say?
I don't know what you were saying, but you just weren't listening to me, and I was asking you for the पाना. I was like, पाना दे दो भाई.
सोफिया के घर के बाहर हमारा टायर फ्लैट हो गया. एक्चुअली एक टायर फ्लैट हुआ था, फिर हमने चेंज किया
और फिर दूसरा
भी फ्लैट था. सो फिर हमने सोफिया के डैड की सविक का टायर तुम्हारी सिटी में लगाकर पंप गए, पंक्चर बनाया, फिर उनको वापस दिया. Yeah, so that Danny was under the car with phone की torch light. And
Shehzad clearly couldn't change a tire on his own, so I had to do it myself.
I was giving him torch light, na? And then he just
with running commentary that didn't
obviously help. Obviously. You gotta keep it fun. So then he just kept screaming, Pana, Pana, Pana. But at some point he chased me.
I did.
इसकी तस्वीरें भी होंगी कहीं ना कहीं, सलमान भी थी वहाँ पर. What are the challenges you faced as a musician? I think last podcast में बहुत ज़्यादा कवर हो गया.
ये काफी कवर हो गया था.
कुछ ऐड करना चाहेंगे या सही है?
यार challenges मैं क्या बोलूँ challenges का.
पिछली पॉडकास्ट सुन ले सब.
I think the biggest challenge is keeping your day job and also creating your art at the same time. Because to be able to create your art, you need to keep your day job unless your art is paying you. That's the biggest challenge. Don't think about anything else.
Can you please ask him his experience of working on a digital audio workstation?
Experiences of working on it? I mean, I make all my music on digital audio workstations.
क्या experience है?
यार अच्छा experience है. Like it's क्या बोलूं?
Hope आपको जवाब मिल गया. बहुत अच्छा.
It's great. Like technology is wonderful. You can create your own music now sitting at home. It's lovely.
10 years ago, Vice wrote an article about beef between Forever South Collective and Talal Qureshi, with the latter not being painted in a good light. Does he have a positive opinion about TQ today?
Do I have a positive
opinion about TQ today?
Yeah, TQ is great, man. There's no doubt about it. You should ask TQ, man.
आता नहीं है यार, वो कराची आएगा तो आ जाएगा पॉडकास्ट पे.
नहीं, I think I might have mentioned last time, but one of the first live sets that TQ played was with me and his brother.
TQ की पहली पब्लिक परफॉर्मेंस किसके साथ थी? नहीं, मेरे साथ.
अच्छा. Oh yes. Oh, now I remember the dance.
He did the dance.
Oh yeah, I'm talking music. Yeah.
Saipaf.
Yeah.
You were playing और music concert से पहले.
Yeah. And the lots of glitter.
Yes.
I remember this.
Yes. Wow. That was the first time TQ on a stage.
TQ needs to come to the podcast.
अब बहुत famous हो गया ना तलाल. अब मैं ये वीडियो निकालता हूँ.
Yeah.
We all lived with a stone's throw away from each other.
Yeah.
I could go this.
I mean, by the way, उस time पे भी beef नहीं था. I think Talal उस time पे just the thing is the Vice article also came out in such a weird way. I think Talal was quoted as saying के the music that was, because Talal just recently moved to Islamabad this time pe, I think he was quoted as saying ke the music that's made in Karachi is only for the druggies or something like that. And then obviously all the boys got pissed off and they messaged Vice about it. And
was he wrong? I mean, was he wrong?
Not necessarily, but basically the boys' retort was ke he's living in a place where old army uncles retire. It's stupid, man. Like I said, 10 years ago was a different time, guys. It doesn't matter.
East Street पे कोई कैफे था ना जिसके first floor पे वो
Cafe 44?
Yes. And it was so weird. That was the first Forever South gig ever, right?
Not ever.
Was it?
No, not ever. It was probably the third or fourth, maybe.
अच्छा खैर, उधर ऊपर रेव हो रही है. रेव. नीचे families dinner कर रही हैं. So as you walk in, there's restaurant music, soft piano, और families dinner कर रही हैं, and you're they're ऊपर. So surreal. Yeah. I was like, ये क्या हो रहा है ऊपर नीचे वालों को नहीं पता ऊपर क्या हो रहा है. Love his work, but did he ever feel the desire to make more popular, accessible music? I think हमने discuss कर लिया.
I did have the desire to do it when I was like, maybe I should just be making money off this constantly. But then I realized that if I were to do it, I'd probably start hating myself. So I'd rather do it for other people than do it for myself.
You can hate yourself and then afford therapy. That's the right way to do these things.
And to afford therapy, you have to make other people's music. So
why do you make your friends do kana? What's kana? What's kana? What is kana?
Yeah, it's a natural herb.
Oh.
Which
you've never. I'm not.
Makes you happy.
Am I not friends? Am I not?
But it's not like a smokable. It's a perfectly legal herb. You can buy it on the Ras.
Why have you never made me do kana? I'm not friend.
I don't know, man.
इस साल का मुझे सबसे ज्यादा धोखा जो है, सबसे ज्यादा बिट्रेल डैनी ने दिया.
अच्छा.
दिल तोड़ा है मेरा सबसे ज्यादा.
Because I moved out.
Yeah. Even last night I woke up with some paranormal activity and then I was like, shit yaar. एक वो दिल को कंफर्ट होता है ना कि दीवार के पीछे डैनी होता है. तुम मूव तो करो बेटा कहीं परमानेंटली, फिर मैं आता हूँ.
सही है.
हम एक दूसरे का पीछा नहीं छोड़ेंगे. We've been neighbors all our lives.
From Tarak Road to Defense.
It's only recently that we're not. So यार ये बहुत लंबा सवाल है, मैं पूछ लेता हूँ, इसका कोई छोटा मोटा सवाल दे देना. Why should I even be concerned about music? What real life challenges or pain points does it solve? What tangible, हमने काफी डिस्कस कर लिया वैसे ये. Why should he be concerned about music, bhai?
Why should we? I mean, it's like I said, is this person making music or is this person?
No, obviously not. I think this comes from a place of economics, law and order, land reforms. In सब दुनिया में मैं क्यों music?
देखो,
which one of these domains is addressed or value added by music?
What did you do in the pandemic is my question. Did you listen to a lot of music during the pandemic? Were you entertained by things online? If you weren't, then that's okay. But if you did actually see what artists were doing during the pandemic, putting out a lot of music and everything, you should realize by now that it was something that kept people going. It made people happy. And music makes people happy. It makes them feel things. It is so important, like I said earlier, to your mental health and your well-being. Like, I think the biggest example I can give you about why music is important is you see any newborn baby play music in front of it, it will naturally start dancing.
Ask questions about technical aspect of guitar playing, music theory, composition, what it takes to compose music, difference between musical instruments players and a composer.
I don't think there's any difference. I just need to... You also don't necessarily need to even know how to play an instrument these days. Like I said, you can get Fruity Loops or Ableton, get onto a tutorial online, learn the basics of music theory, and then you know how to put things together. Playing an instrument is definitely helpful. Sure, it assists in that way because of the tactile response to it and the fact that you don't have to sit and click and put things together. So it's great as a songwriting tool to be able to play an instrument. As far as the theory and everything goes, that all depends on your own personal learnings and how you plan to learn that.
नापा जाए,
नापा जाए. अगर आपके पास पैसे भी नहीं है, आप YouTube पे काफी कुछ सीख सकते हैं. I learned so many things off YouTube. यार. Abdullah Siddiqui is a big example. Like he still says it. He learned a lot of things off YouTube. And look at where he's now, associate producer at Coke Studio.
नाइस. अब्दुल्ला सिद्दीकी, तलाल कुरैशी, आप लोग अगर सुन रहे हैं तो आ जाएं पॉडकास्ट पर. थैंक यू सो मच डैनी. कुछ आप कहना चाहेंगे जाने से पहले? कुछ प्रमोट करना चाहेंगे?
Just please keep supporting the local scene, guys. That's all I can ask.
Alien Panda Jury, look him up.
Kukido as well. That's also the other name I go by.
Insta, Twitter,
सही है. SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Cape Mons Records, check that out as well. Lots of music we're putting out. Yeah.
Thank you so much everybody for listening, and thank you Danny for a lovely conversation. Take care. Bye.
Take care.